I just got the kids to bed.
Good, because have you ever had one of those days where you just wanted to go back and redo it again? Kind of like, I don't know, Back to the Future.
Is today one of those days?
Today's one of those days.
Let's go back.
Alright, so it's been one of those days for me where not a whole ton went right. I just want to go back and, like, maybe do it differently. Once.
But isn't that what Groundhog Day is?
Just one time. Or go back and just warn myself once. One time. Leave myself a little note.
A post-it?
Yes, just
a little post-it on your bed. Dear self.
Yep, just one of those things. Go back, maybe send myself a text message. Or Frequency style, like the movie Frequency. Like, call myself on the ham radio. But I don't have a ham radio.
Because you have a ham radio.
But just notify myself that one of my classes.
Send yourself a Facebook message.
That's what
a tweet.
It would be a tweet. It would be a tweet. A tweet, and I would say, hey, guess what? Your fourth period class is going to be awful. And your principal is going to walk in right in the middle of it. No. Can't do that. But they do that in movies.
All the time. But some do it much better than others.
Definitely.
We're going to kind of not so much talk about the Groundhog Day, Live, Die, Repeat style time travel movies, but our other favorite and least favorite time travel movies.
Well, let me specify. These are really difficult things.
Yes.
Really difficult things to talk about. So difficult that China in 2011 actually banned time travel movies. And you know why? Say, why?
Why?
Why? Because they're worried that if people could write stories where they go back in the past and criticize former government officials, that they would cause problem and unrest in a society that doesn't have free speech.
Interesting.
So,
very
in China, currently banned time travel stories and movies.
Before we get into too much to movies, I do want to do a really, really quick shout out to my very favorite ever time travel book, which is called The First 15 Lives of Harry August, Link in the Doobly-Doo. It's just so good. It's just so good. It is one of the most interesting, thought-provoking, amazing premises of time travel that I've read. Hasn't been optioned for a movie or anything yet that I know of, and it may never be, but it's still worth your time if you're a reader. So when it comes to time travel movies, there's basically 3 types of time travel movies. You have your fixed timeline, which is in the style of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where if you go back in time to do something, you have already gone back in time and done that thing, and everything is going to keep going the way it is, regardless of what you try to change. Everything's going to stay the same anyway. Second, you have a dynamic timeline, which is like...
That's like...
Back to the Future.
Where they Back to the Future, where they explain it to where if you change something, it will change the course of history.
So pictures of your sister are going to start to fade, and then you're going to start to fade in the middle of your amazing guitar solo. And then the last one is the multiverse, where you have basically alternate universes, not unlike the new Star Trek reboot, when Spock goes back and basically restarts a whole different...
It's kind of a mind-melting, kind of mind-bending thought of that every single decision we make in life creates a new...
Yeah, like the show Sliders! You remember Sliders? That was such a good show. Remember with...
I remember Sliders, yes.
I used to love Sliders. I loved that show when I was a kid. Oh my gosh. And there was one episode and he finally made it back to their own universe. And he's like, I'll know if this is my house because the gate squeaks. And his dad had just fixed the gate.
Whoa.
So emotional. It was so emotional. Oh, and there's the other one with the lottery. Okay, we need to stop talking about
We can go back and watch Sliders. That would be good.
I wonder
Do you know
if
what
it's
else would be
still a good show.
Do you know another TV show that would be interesting to go back and watch?
What's that?
Quantum Leap. We're talking
Quantum
time travel. That'd be an interesting one to go back and watch. Sci-fi. Because I wonder if like Quantum Leap did it well then, but was like ahead of its time. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Kind of interesting. So, I don't know. We'll try that another time. My number one is kind of out there a little bit obscure, and not in a particular order, but the first one I'll talk about is called Primer. It was written in 2004 by a guy by the name of Shane Carruth. And the cool thing about Primer is this. First thing, is that Primer was done on a $7,000 budget.
Yeah.
$7,000.
Super low budget.
But, and I'll quote Roger Ebert when he said, none of it looks like under budgeted. Like, it all looks great. It was done really, really well. But the thing that I really like about Primer gets time travel right in that time travel should be messy.
Yeah.
If you go and change something, it's not only gonna mess up like your future, mess up friends, but it can mess up current friendships. And I think that was like a really big theme of Primer, was that there was two friends that were friends before.
I mean, they went back in time so that they could make money, so that they could make financial decisions that were going to benefit their future selves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it gets super messy.
It does get really messy with friends, and that their friendship themselves. The story isn't about the time travel. They use the time travel as a vehicle to tell a story about two friends and the deterioration of their relationship. Yeah. And that's what I really, really like about Primer. Primer can get really really mess up your mind if you really think about it. But if you watch the movie and just look and focus on the relationship between the two, that's where the story is really great. And it's kind of sad that, I mean, Shane Carruth hasn't really done anything big since then. But he actually was consulted on one of my other movies that I really, really liked, the time travel movies, by a guy named Rian Johnson. He wrote Looper and directed Looper.
One of the really cool things that I liked about Looper, not so much with the time travel part of it, although that was really cool, really, really super cool, but just the acting and the makeup work and everything they did with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis, I thought was really neat and hadn't really been done to that extent before.
Rian Johnson's done some really good things, so and he utilized Shane Carruth as part of the script writing in that. He said he wished he could have used him a little bit more, and they sadly wasn't as big a part to it, but he did kind of look over scripts. In fact, some of the parts that he was going to do, they ended up cutting because it was ironically, it cost too much money for their budget to do this, which is funny too, because he did it the other way.
So good at low budget stuff.
But again, like, the thing that I really, really enjoyed about Looper was the fact that, like, again, it's not about time travel. Like, to me, that's again part of a vehicle to kind of talk more about the bigger question of for the greater good. It's the whole story is really about making the right decision for the greater good, and kind of figuring out which is, which one of the two evil decisions or two bad decisions are the right one, or the better one for everybody else. Right. So I really liked how that story taught that through the vehicle of time travel. Yeah.
So Blair talked about his first two. Mine seem to be more on the comedic end. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start with Time Bandits. And it's bizarre and it's weird and wonderful. And the scene with John Cleese as Robin Hood is one of just the most clever and funny scenes that I've seen in any time travel movie. And it is weird, and it's Terry Gilliam, so it's it's one that you have to see. You just have to see it whether you think it's good or not. Mm-hmm. Another one on the comedic end that I really like, please don't hate me for saying this either, 13 Going on 30. It's so adorable! And Mark Ruffalo is so adorable in it. But the thing, though, that I like about that, too, is it kind of takes the whole premise of, you've seen the ones where, someone is frozen in time and then they wake up in the future. This is where the girl, wakes up and sees herself in the future and then is able to go back to the past. But it's cute and it's adorable in the way that it shows, even if you get all these things that you think you might want and you look at the future and you think, these are all the things that I want in my life, this is what's going to make me happy. And then to kind of just see, maybe the things that you're after are not necessarily what's going to make you happy. And I really like that about it.
So again, the neat thing about the ones that you've and I've chosen is the time travel part of it becomes less.
Right. Well, and even in Time Bandits, I think it's more about the boy's relationship with his parents, or lack of relationship with his parents, better said.
Right. All right, so my third one actually kind of goes along with Bruce Willis in Looper. Mm-hmm. And he was in Looper. He was also in another time travel movie called 12 Monkeys, which, for me, I love that. It's one of my guilty pleasures, if there's such a thing as being a guilty pleasure, because I think it has a 93% fresh on.
Well, and it's another one that's it's originally based on a French film called Le Jeté that I've seen And it's really interesting, too, because the French film, it's all in black and white, and it's basically a series of photographs. Mm-hmm. And then in the very middle of the film, there's just one small... That's action. And it's such a departure from everything that you've seen up until that point that it's a little bit jarring. And it's really beautiful. But that's what... But anyway, talk more about 12 Monkeys.
But the story's really, really cool. Like where they're in it's a post-apocalyptic version where they have a time machine where they can send people back to stop a virus from happening that was released by a group called the 12 Monkeys.
And this is another one that's fixed, is that correct?
Yes, this is a fixed timeline story. It's probably like your quintessential fixed timeline because it's one of those that when you get to it, you're like, oh, okay, I see where it's going.
You're hoping and hoping that he's going to be able to go back and change things, and you feel like he's probably changing things, and then you realize, oh my goodness, everything went the way that it went.
Yeah, and now for me, Brad Pitt in that show in 12 Monkeys is at his best. I mean, that's probably, in my opinion, one of his greatest performances ever. He is fantastic. Bruce Willis is Bruce Willis.
He's Bruce Willis.
Which is good, but he's Bruce Willis in that. But Brad Pitt is phenomenal. If you haven't seen it and you want to see amazing acting by Brad Pitt, and I don't say that lightly. Go check out 12 Monkeys.
So, and my third and final one is Midnight in Paris. And it is great. And I'm not a huge Woody Allen fan, but Midnight in Paris is wonderful. And and Owen Wilson in it is wonderful as well. But here's the thing. I might be a little bit biased because I was an English major in college, and I studied really heavily the expatriates in Paris. So Hemingway and Fitzgerald and Ezra Pound and everybody else that was there, and Gertrude Stein. And so for me, every single little cameo or name drop that was in there, I was so excited. The first time that we watched it, Blair had fallen asleep. We were watching it,
I watched it later. It's good.
Yeah, but we were watching it really late, and Blair was asleep. And I'm shaking him. I'm like, Blair, they just mentioned T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot was in that cab. And he's like, great. This is great. Great. Well, but I thought it was fantastic. And again, for me, the main point about it that I loved all of the literature and art references. That was fantastic. But the thing that I loved most about it was that he goes back because he has this idealized picture in his mind that, the 1920s in Paris, that was when life was good, and that's what I wish I had, and this is when life was good. And he goes back to the 1920s and meets a girl, and she's all obsessed with the Belle Epoque in the 1890s, and, that's when it was good, and such a more elegant time, and they even go back further there, and I think she sees Claude Monet, and it kind of just makes you realize, there's always something, any time in history you think that there's been a better time, and what's really important is what you do with the time right now that you have.
Right.
So I love that about it.
That was a great theme of the story. Again, kind of grass is always greener thought.
Yeah.
But life's okay where you are.
And another one that I want to mention that Blair's not a huge fan of and I thought was really interesting is Predestination. Super weird.
It's very
so weird. It's another one that, Blair wasn't too crazy about it, and I just thought it was really interesting, but I kind of like a little bit of hard sci-fi now and then. So.
Yeah, it's just when you catch the ending, it not only, caught you off guard, it weirds you out and grossed you out a little bit. So, I don't know, if you've seen Predestination, feel free to comment with us what kind of... what you thought, because it's
weird.
The ending was just...
All right. But now, on to our all-time, both of us, absolute favorite time travel movie is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. This is our 9-year-old's favorite time travel movie as well. I fell in love with it when I was a little kid. The entire movie is so quotable. It is by far Keanu Reeves' greatest role to date. I don't think anything, no Neo or Johnny Utah or anything else that he's ever done can even come close.
Well, you even throw George Carlin in there. His role as Rufus in that was just, I love George Carlin comedy and stuff, but every time I see him, he's Rufus.
Yeah, he's Rufus, and the music. I mean, because they're a band, the Wild Stallions or whatever, but when they go into the future and the music that's playing in the background, it's gorgeous. No wonder it aligned the planets. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part in that movie?
Well,
Favorite scene?
Okay, favorite scene. Well, okay, when he sends all of the people, like all of the Abraham Lincoln, Genghis Khan, all of them to the mall. That's the greatest part, because it kind of has
Joan
that.
of Arc is doing her 80s fitness stuff.
Right, but like the humor in it is so intelligent though. Like
It
it's
is.
goofy, but it's really intelligent, because like Napoleon goes to a water
To
park
Waterloo.
called Waterloo. Like,
So
like,
great.
and when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I was watching that. I didn't catch it. And
Yeah,
then when
you
you're
don't
older,
get it
you go,
when you're
"Oh my gosh, he's at Waterloo!"
It's so funny.
Oh.
So funny. And then also with that same thing at the end when they're giving their presentation
Oh,
and
the
all
Sigmund
of them
Freud
are
one?
Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud, and even when Napoleon is like, planning out his battle and everything, and it's like, I don't think it's gonna work. No? And then he just But
The
that's great
Sigmund
too.
Freud though, when he's psychoanalyzing was it Bill? And
Yeah,
he's
with this-
psychoanalyzing
no.
Bill, and
He's psychoanalyzing Ted, and
Right.
he offers Bill, and he's like,
just
a mild
Oedipus complex. Like I had no idea what that meant. It's also important that we didn't mention Back to the Future.
Yeah, we didn't mention Back to the Future, and I know that it's like the quintessential time travel movie that everybody refers to.
Mm-hmm. And it's great. It's great. I think it didn't really necessarily handle time travel itself as a viable thing, but the storyline is fantastic. Robert Zemeckis did a really good job with it's more about about Marty and his progression and growth as a character. And it is, because he starts off, especially in the third one, where he's chicken and he has to like overcome being egged on by like.
Right.
And if he has to overcome his own pride, and once he gets over his own pride, he's able to win his own story. That's how he wins it.
Well, it's true. I guess if we're talking about character development and things like that, I think other ones are a little bit stronger.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying that it's decent, but if we're talking time travel movies, it doesn't crack my top 3. All right, so let's get to our
Hold the bacon.
Hold the bacon.
So, since we're talking about time travel, we're doing 2 actors that have both played Einstein. So we're going Walter Matthau, who played Einstein in IQ, to Eugene Levy, who did the voice of Einstein in Night at the Museum 2, which is the best of the Night at the Museum movies. I'll just put that out there.
Okay, great. So Eugene Levy. Okay, let's go. We got to get Walter Matthau first.
Walter
Walter Matthau was in.
Can we use IQ and?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Because he's in. Well, he's in IQ with Meg Ryan and Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins.
So.
And isn't Stephen Fry in that movie too?
Maybe. I don't know. But
What else is he in? Grumpy Old Men.
he's in Grumpy Old Men. He's also in that. What's that? Dennis the Menace with Christopher Lloyd.
Oh yeah.
Which would take us to
it's
another.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
Another time
Which takes
travel
us to another
movie.
time travel movie to Back to the Future. But no, Eugene Levy. He's in
Everything with Christopher Guest.
And
He's in every movie with. Yeah. And all of those Christopher Guest and their pals. So I mean,
Got
you've
it.
got
Done.
Jane Lynch. Oh wow, really?
Yeah,
Go
got
ahead.
it. Okay, Walter Matthau's in IQ with Meg Ryan,
Yeah.
who was in When Harry Met Sally
With Billy Crystal.
who's in like a handful of movies, but like
Well, but
Grand-
he's in This Is Spinal Tap. He's the mime. Mime is money.
right.
And he's also in Princess Bride, but both with Christopher Guest,
Mm-hmm.
who is in Night at the Museum, too.
Right. With
Because he plays Ivan the Terrible.
Eugene Levy. There
So
you go.
good. Yay!
Well
See,
played.
but this is the second one in a row that you've beaten. This will
I don't
not
know.
stand.
I was
This
actually
aggression will not stand,
I was actually
man.
going another direction. You finished it off for me.
Well, this was fun.
So,
Bye.
again, in the comments below, tell us what your favorite time travel movie was. If it's one that we haven't listed, or if it's one we haven't seen, even that would be great to add some more to our list. Tell us what you think of our choices. Also, click subscribe and like with the big giant thumbs up. And see you later.